morning, Russell here again, and today I will be doing a 10,000 mile review on this Honda Talon 1000R. If you're looking at buying one, I will tell you the things I like about it and the things I don't like about it and the things to prepare for that could possibly go wrong during your ownership. Okay, the first 500 miles of this machine, it was a 1000X four-seater. And at approximately 500 miles, I switched it to an R suspension and added the Jackson Racing turbo kit. So about 9,500 miles as an R with the turbo kit. All right, the biggest issue I've had with this over 10,000 miles is the subtrans failing 3 times. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure if this is a upgrade failure or design failure from Honda. Okay, the reason I say upgrade failure is, I increased the tires to 32 inches, which changes the gear ratio, which puts more strain on the drivetrain. The other thing is, all 3 failures, I had 4 grown adults in it and utilizing the Hess i4 wheel drive override on it. So what the override does is it gives you full power all the time. So when it's pedal to the metal, it's not reducing power or anything. Okay, when you use just the standard i4 wheel drive that comes in the machine, when slip is detected, it'll transfer power from one side to the other on the front. And in some scenarios, it will reduce power output from the engine. So between the tires upgrading and the Hess i4 wheel drive, did that play a role in the subtrans braking? Very likely. Okay, so that's the issues I've had, and the upgrades I believe I made that could have contributed to that failure. So when you're building your machine or looking at upgrades, take that into consideration on how you're going to drive. All right, a common issue with all of the Honda Talons from the beginning since 2019 is a front differential that seeps right around the front axle. That's super common. Most seeps don't even need to be repaired, but if you have a major leak, it's like a $10 or $15 seal that needs to be replaced. One upgrade I think you should consider is the airbox intake location. Okay, so right now with the factory airbox, which the filter is phenomenal by the way, doesn't let any dust through. Just approximately every 500 miles in dusty conditions, the filter needs to be replaced at approximately $50 per filter. So by adding a particle separator, I think that's the best way to go. That would be one of the first upgrades I would make. I prefer the S&B filter because there's basically zero maintenance, and there's a switch to turn it on where you can turn the fan on and off. If it's raining or if it's snow or whatever, you can have the fan off. The KWT is the other option. You just have to empty the canister, but there's no electrical components involved. So, I think both are a good option. It just goes off of what you prefer. The S&B with the fan is additional noise and less maintenance. So for this video, please don't misunderstand me. The Honda Talon has a lot of great features, and for trail riding, I prefer it once the suspension is upgraded. I really like the DCT. So keep in mind, I also have a Polaris Pro R, which I've had phenomenal luck with that CVT. I got 4,200 miles out of a belt, and I also have a Kawasaki Ridge XR HVAC. So I have 2 CVT machines and I have 1 DCT machine. So for the sand dunes, I absolutely prefer the Pro R and a CVT. Anywhere else, I prefer the DCT. So I'm gonna point out all the issues, but it doesn't mean that I don't like this machine and I'm not recommending it. It's just something for you to be aware of before making a large purchase. Some of the failures I've seen from the factory are fluids not being filled. I've seen on 2 occasions the front differential not having any oil in it. I've seen the subtrans not having any oil in it from the factory, and the rear differential. So when you pick up the machine, you definitely want to check those things out, even though it would be covered under warranty. But that's a headache that you could easily avoid by checking the fluid levels. One upgrade I would like the factory to do is the size of the fuel tank. Most machines come with a 10 to 12 gallon tank. This is approximately 7 gallons. So especially with the 4-seater, even though this gets far superior fuel mileage to nearly every comparable sport UTV. I would like to see a 12-gallon tank in there. On this machine, I did upgrade and added a 12-gallon tank, which I have a separate how-to video for that. One of the complaints I have is with the factory power steering unit from the 19 to 22 year models. It's underpowered. If you upgrade the tire sizes, for example, an X you would upgrade to a 30, R model you could upgrade to 32. So once you add bigger and heavier tires, the power steering unit on the old models are underpowered. So what I did is I added the e-power steering unit, which has been absolutely phenomenal. There's an output dial right on the dash. So for high speeds, you can do minimal assist. For low speeds, you can do maximum assist. It's been phenomenal and flawless for 10,000 miles. So if you want to upgrade, check out e-power steering. In multiple machines, I've installed the Super ATV, which has been junk. The unit itself has been okay, but like the U-joints on the kit for the steering column have been absolute junk. So I recommend the e-power steering. So when making upgrades to this machine, you have to take things into consideration. So one thing is the wheel size and the wheel offset. Okay, so a lot of people will run a 4.3 offset all the way around, and which is going to make it more stable, but then there's going to be a bunch of negative consequences. For example, you'll get negative feedback in the steering wheel. Your steering rack will fail, which I've upgraded to the RB3 steering rack in this. Your wheel bearings, tie rods, ball joints will wear out much faster, but you're going to have a little better handling. So when you're making those upgrades, just take into consideration the negative consequences. Okay, for me, I personally run a 6+1 wheel set all the way around. So these are 15-inch KMC forged wheels. I've been extremely happy with them. And I'm running the BF Goodwrench KM3 tires, which over the last 30 miles and multiple machines, I've been very happy with these KM3s. So it really depends on the type of riding that you would be doing, but Arizona desert, rocky trails, the KM3s have held up great. So back to the offset, 6+1 all the way around, 1.5-inch wheel spacers on the rear, and that makes the width on the front and the rear the same. Or you could run a 4.3 offset on the rear and a 6.1 offset on the front to make it the same as well. So that's just a couple of options on the tires and wheels. Another complaint I have with this is the brakes are just mediocre on this. For general trail riding, they're going to be just fine. If you want to upgrade to Willwood, does make a brake kit, and I've installed it before. Pretty high quality kit. So there is an option to upgrade that feature on the Honda Talon. The reason this is my first choice for trail riding is the DCT transmission. I like it the best. You don't have to worry about belts at $200 a pop. The shifting is great. The reliability is phenomenal. These clutch packs have held up 20,000 miles under normal conditions. Okay. But I had to really upgrade the suspension. The suspension from the factory is absolutely horrible in my opinion. And what I did to remedy that was I took it to shock therapy, dropped it off for a couple of weeks. They did the ride improvement system. They basically drove it every day for 2 weeks to get the valving just right and the spring rate perfect for all 8 springs on the suspension. Now it is the smoothest, best riding 4-seater I've ever been in. So with the DCT and the Ultra Plush suspension, it is by far my first choice for trail riding. So next question, should you spend extra money for the live valve or get the standard model? Okay, so this is the standard model, but I added the Fox IQS to it, which means I can adjust on the fly from in the cab with the rocker switch. Soft, medium to firm. So of course for rock crawling I will have it on soft. For higher speeds I'll have it on firm. Super happy with that suspension, but personally if I had to pick between the two, I would go with the live valve model because the live valve takes into consideration acceleration to adjust the suspension, cornering, and braking. And you can also shift between a couple settings of between normal and sport. So if I had to do it over again, I would buy the live valve. All right, there's two different models here you can buy in the US. There's the AC model, which is only sold in California, and there's the A model, which is sold everywhere else in North America. Okay. The AC model in California has an evap system, which will capture the fumes coming out of the gas tank, which will prevent smell in your toy hauler or your garage when not in use. So that's really the only difference in the models that are currently sold in North America. All right, so the biggest debate, especially in the Honda Talon community, is CVT versus DCT. Okay, so my Polaris Pro R has a CVT. Absolutely love it in the sand dunes. Prefer it. Some of the negative aspects of that is $200 per belt, breaking down, monitoring belt temp, maintenance on the primary and secondary clutches. Every 600 miles I pull the primary and the secondary out. I clean the primary and secondary, put it back in. But I also got 4,200 miles out of the original factory belt. So there's a lot more maintenance involved. But in the sand dunes, I prefer that. Okay, everywhere else driving, I'm going to prefer the DCT. I guess the only downfall is on this, you use 6.1 quarts of oil, where some machines are 2 to 3 quarts of oil because the transmission and the engine share the same oil, so there's a greater amount. So it really depends on the type of driving you're going to do. If it's mostly trails, yeah, I'm going to prefer the DCT. If it's mostly sand dunes, I'm going to prefer the CVT. But the one place that Honda's falling short on is horsepower, but they make up for it with reliability. 104 horsepower compared to other sport models, the Maverick R at 240, the Polaris Pro R at 225 stock, with the ability to get a Polaris Pro R up to 500 horsepower. This you're gonna maybe bump up to 150 crank horsepower, 125 wheel horsepower with the turbo kit from Jackson Racing. So it really depends on how you're going to use it and what you want to do with it. The next question you may have is, which turbo kit should you go for, the Craftswork or the Jackson Racing? Okay, I have approximately 17,000 miles with the Jackson Racing turbo kit. If I were to buy one today, I would buy the Jackson Racing kit again, because I'm familiar with it, and I believe the issues that I've had with it have been fixed by Jackson Racing very quietly. For example, the headers were breaking frequently, but they kind of silently increased the thickness of their header, and now I have thousands and thousands of miles with their updated version with 0 issues. I believe the reason that they have kept that quiet is because they didn't want to replace every header sold, and that's just my guess. But so the issues I've had have been fixed. I would say where Jackson Racing stands out is the reliability issue. They're not the most powerful, but the reliability. Their tune does. I have driven thousands of miles from sea level to 14,000 feet, and it properly adjusts for elevation. And I don't think many tuners out there can say that. So, do I believe other tuners will produce more power? 100% without a doubt. If you're staying at the same level, go for it. The same elevation, I should say. Go for the other tuners. They're going to give you more power. If you're a trail rider, where I can go from 3,000 feet here at my house to 8,000 feet in an hour or less, I'm definitely going to stick with the Jackson Racing tune. So I believe all the issues are fixed. I believe it properly adjusts for elevation, and that is the reason I would buy the Jackson Racing kit again. So in closing, if you want a machine that's going to last 10, 15, 20,000 miles, I do believe the Honda Talon is the right option for you. I do believe if it's carefully and properly modded or upgraded, you won't have any issues. I believe this, in a 10,000 mile period, this will be the most reliable, dependable machine. The other thing to take into consideration is my Kawasaki Ridge XR HVAC, which has 116 horsepower, uses exactly double the fuel as this with 150 horsepower. My Pro R also, which is just tuned to about 240 horsepower, also uses double the fuel. So if you're a high mileage person and with high gas prices, something to take into consideration, but I think this machine will get you to 10,000 miles with the least amount of breakdowns of any machine out there.